Actually, it started back in 1958 in a tomato patch down in Jersey.
People at Steamtown, the staff, did support the idea of the Trolley Museum. After all, the first trolley run here was in 1886, November 1886, from Lackawanna Avenue down to Greenridge.
Obviously, Steamtown already had this huge draw. And so I think it's a nice adjunct to what Steamtown developed.
You don't have to have a tour guide. You can come down here and get lost in all they have to offer.
It gives the visitor coming off the street this kind of really cool multitude of experiences.
We're telling a valuable story and supporting the restoration and the interpretation of the history that happened here with rail and trolley.
We have to look at the past in order to look at the future.
In the 1880s, the Scranton area had horse car lines.
The spread of electric trolleys came about, not surprisingly, along with the development of the use of electricity.
People like Edison and Westinghouse had been developing motors, electric motors, taking a horse car and putting a motor on it and not having to have the horse.
And a fellow by the name of Sturgis, he was a businessman here in town, and he was impressed with Charles Vanderpoel's operation. And he contracted with Vanderpoel to supervise and engineer the Scranton Suburban Railway.
Two developers, Sturgis and Sanderson, had a partnership that created the trolley system. And they were also developers, so they developed the neighborhood of Greenridge.
In 1886, Scranton Transit Company car number 4 left downtown Scranton and ran out through the Greenridge neighborhood of Scranton. That became the very first electric commercial trolley operation in the United States.
Commercially, it was successful, so they kept on running it.
Bearing in mind 1880, the city of Scranton did have streetlights, electric streetlights. So between the electric streetlights and the run of the trolley came the nickname the Electric City.
The trolley era pretty much hit in like the early teens, the 20s, into some of the 30s.
With the trolley, you could go from here to Wilkes-Barre. You could live in Scranton, work in Wilkes-Barre, live in Scranton.
At one time, you could take a trolley up to Music Lake. So it was a great system.
The Laurel Line was originally the corporate name was the Lackawanna and Wyoming Valley Railroad, and it was about a 19-mile rail line between Scranton and Wilkes-Barre, and the main purpose was to haul coal. There were mines along the line, and they serviced those mines.
In addition to using the line for freight and coal, to move people, to move passengers, so they built Rocky Glen.
It was quite an experience for me because I was only about 6 years old at the time. And I did it several times, and we'd get company, we'd take them down and take them on a trolley. The big thing was that mile run under South Scranton. I get down there and then we get off, go over to Rocky Glen, spend a day and back again.
When I was doing the trolley operations, and we'd talk to some of the people that would be on the car, and they were local people, they'd always say, oh, I used to ride the trolley, the Laurel Line, down to Rocky Glen Park and spend the day. It was great.
I don't remember all of that, but I mean, if you go back historically, that's how these things came to be. But the Laurel Line was basically, in order to get it out to the, which is now the area of Route 81, but the Erie Railroad was up there, and then Laurel Line, and they built the tunnel to get up there. There's pictures of where the Laurel Line station was in here, and we go right by it when you go out on the trolley now.
A whole cadre of folks that formed a task force that led to the creation of the River Conservation Association in 1987 and the Lackawanna Heritage Valley Program, which was a partnership of the community with the National Park Service and with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania.
It was really neat how it all worked together, you know, federal, county, local, private, Lackawanna Heritage Valley funding, a big chunk of it.
Steamtown National Historic Site was created by an act of Congress in 1986, and it is part of the National Park Service. And within the 42 acres that the park was created from the Delaware, Lackawanna, and Western Railroad was a empty building built in 1877. It was on the far western side of the boundary.
It was an unused building, and the National Park Service had no plans for it. And so when the Heritage Valley and the county were negotiating with the National Park Service, it was decided that we could use that particular building.
At one time, it had been a locomotive shop for the DL&W Railroad, and then later became a silk mill, United Silk Mill, and then a bakery for Williams Bakery, and then a warehouse. At the time the park acquired the 42 acres, it was vacant. A juxtaposition, I think, of an idea came together to create a Trolley museum in that vacant building.
It started back around 1993 and with different concepts, and there's over 100 drawings related to the design and development of this Trolley Museum building. And this is the final version of what you see today.
I was hired to design and build the exhibits inside. The kids' exhibit was probably my favorite area. And my sons at that point were, I think, like 10 and 11 years old. So they were my unpaid consultants on kids' exhibits. And so the different components, the generator that you have to crank to get the little HO trolley going, I would say, okay guys, try and knock the trolley off the track by cranking it really fast. And so they were my testers. And originally, as you face the museum, the two bays on the far right were going to be the restoration shop. And the more we got into doing the work and finishing the interior, it was realized that environmentally that would have some issues, to have the public that close and have restoration work going on over there. And so it was determined pretty early on in the project that those would be display bays instead. The cutaway was my idea. It was the Steamtown shops, we contracted with them to actually do that work. They put a new roof on. The sides were all rusted, a lot of them were rusted out. So they replaced all those panels. And I said, well, let's open up the floor so that you can see the trucks underneath and just see how light these things work.
So I've been here almost 24 years, just related to the library. In 2003, they made me chairman. So probably everybody stepped back and I was out, but I enjoyed doing it. Books, magazines, tickets, advertising items. So that all came into the library and has not stopped.
There's an inherent value in all artifacts, whether they're small or large. And of course, obviously, trolleys, steam trains are large artifacts, which makes them harder to handle, but nevertheless of great value. And they are disappearing from our landscape. And a couple of trolley organizations who had trolleys that they were willing to donate to the cause and to create the Lackawanna Trolley Museum.
It's about 5 fellas that pooled their money together and came up with $500 and bought a trolley car. Now, what do you do with a trolley car? You don't put it in your backyard. They took it down to Jersey, Tandsboro, New Jersey, and it was in a tomato patch, and they built a trolley line. They ran into some difficulties, and the trolley were moved to Jobestown, New Jersey, where they were just stored because Jobestown didn't have an operating trolley museum in their town. And then they moved a third time to the New Hope Railroad, Bucks County.
They had a small demonstration ride set up in Philadelphia, but unfortunately they were not able to maintain their status there.
Who's responsible for us getting all the wonderful volunteers from the former Front Street operation in Philadelphia and their trolley cars to Scranton? Mayor Ed Rendell. He wanted to redevelop that portion of Philadelphia on their waterfront, and he evicted the Trolley Museum and their volunteers, and guess where they came?
We donated all of our equipment, parts and everything, over $1 million worth of trolley stuff to the county.
the trolleys were arriving at Steamtown, and they were unloading them with a crane. They were coming in on large flatbed trucks, and then that was my beginning with the trolley. The museum opened in 1999, and the trolley was still about 2 years away yet from operating. 2001 is when we actually started to operate the trolley cars.
The original concept of the trolley museum and trolley ride was that this was going to be where it started from.
The trolley had an interesting birth. First of all, when they opened up in 1999, the trolley wasn't working because they had no electricity, so they had to contract with a company from Philadelphia to put up all the poles and all the wires between that the trolley could run on the track.
The Railroad Authority was able to purchase the line to Montage. It was also another significant achievement. The first steps to electrify the line were small baby steps, like just from Steamtown across Cedar Avenue to the vicinity of the iron furnace, where a siding was put in and a station erected, the first new train station in Lackawanna County since 1928.
Then the first trolley actually ran April 18, 2001. That's a couple of years after the Trolley Museum opened, if you remember.
People right now, there's still a cadre of people who can walk in and say, oh yeah, I know this. This brings back memories. But then every day, those people get fewer and fewer, and people now coming in say, oh look, I can learn this. This is new to me. I can get on this trolley and I can take a ride. And the interactivity, I think, is very important than just looking at a 52-foot trolley sitting on track. It's important to get it out, to get it moving, and to have people on it with the experience.
Well, we have I think it's 1.1 miles long tunnel that is part of this excursion, this ride, and you can't see from one end of the tunnel to the other because it's built on a curve, but it goes under much of Southside. You go in by where the Roaring Brook area is, and you come out up near Stafford Avenue, close to Route 81. There was a generation of people, young people, that probably didn't even know it existed. And I mean, there was men and women that have made their lives by, their husbands were running trains through there. I mean, there's been, it's just a phenomenal thing, and it was in great shape, and it was like, we got to utilize this.
And of course, it's popular that runs over to the Montage Mountain and goes through that tunnel, which is amazing, 1 mile long tunnel under Scranton.
Then they decided we were going to go all the way to the ballpark. And again, changing everything. They put the crossing in at Glenmora Boulevard to allow us the safety to go across. And we made it right into a brand new building. This is in 2006 called the Trolley Works. And that would be the restoring, repairing of our trolley cars in that particular barn, as it is today.
The type of work that goes into these things in terms of trying to fabricate old parts, they're not available anymore. I mean, that's a real talent, and it takes machinists and carpenters and electricians and all kinds of people who, most of them are retired but still volunteer.
Yeah, I'm interested in electrical stuff. I always have been since I was like a little kid. So it was very interesting to me to get the cars operating and looking up the diagrams and get them running.
The last trolley to run in Scranton was the car number 505, and it ran out through Greenridge on the Greenridge Suburban Line.
A committee was formed to restore car 505 in 2012. I think I joined by the second or third meeting. And in 2013, we started the capital campaign to start raising money for the car to take it seriously and try to get it restored.
And the best part is you can see people working on the equipment right now as we speak.
It's always a struggle for an organization to get volunteers today, no matter what they're doing.
And most museums run on their volunteer program.
The majority of our active volunteers serve as motormen on the trolley.
They come from Philadelphia, the Philadelphia area, they come from New Jersey, and all of these trolley museums, they work together.
I got involved as a motorman because I'm very interested in trolleys. Well, I like dealing with people and teaching people the history of the cars, and hopefully we can get some young people to continue it.
And I'm amazed at the resurgence of interest among young people just in the last 10 years. Volunteers to help at railroad museums like Steamtown and the Electric City, Trolley Museum, are always welcome.
We're really proud of what's been accomplished, and we still have a long way to go, and we're going to get there.
And we get people that have come back more than once during the year, and when the families come in to visit, they always come down to ride the trolley.
I was a passenger last Sunday up to a baseball game. It was very nice. You take it and you can ride back. And as you're riding back on a trolley, you see all the traffic backed up and you're saying, I'm not in that.
And I'm really pleased that it's all survived all these many years.
And it's invaluable, and it's something that I would not want to see go away. On December the 18th, 1954, the last trolley was operated in Scranton. I was on it. It was packed like a sardine can. My dad said, hey, Bern, let's go down to the Globe store to see Santa Claus. And so we did, and he also told me that this is the last time the trolley's running. Now, I had been on the trolley previously, go downtown or whatever, but this was the last one. And he said, you're going to remember this ride till forever. Yeah. And I do. Yeah, I wish I could turn the clock back. It was a great trolley system that we had here.
We may not be able to turn the clock back, but we can take a scenic trolley ride past the historic iron furnaces, across the roaring brook, and through the mile-long Crown Avenue Tunnel, one of the longest interurban tunnels ever built. Hope you enjoy your ride